Welcome back to the next episode of the Five at the Back podcast. This is the Manchester United edition. This evening we have myself, obviously Ben James, regular panellist Ashneel Sharma, who was in the first podcast, and new panellists today we have as well, Vishnu and Ashish, Dhanjee, who'll be joining us a little bit later. Good evening, Ashneel.
G'day, mate. How's it going?
Good, and good evening, Vishnu.
Hey, mate. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. So a little bit about myself. Obviously, you guys have met Ashneel before on the first podcast with Jim and Aiden. I've been a United supporter since the mid-2000s. My uncle got me into football, obviously, through playing FIFA, actually, funnily enough, and he was an Everton supporter, so he didn't want me to pick Liverpool. So I wanted to pick a red team, and, well, Arsenal were all the rage at the time, so he didn't want me to be on the bandwagon, so ended up being a United supporter. Vishnu, what about yourself, mate? Tell us a little bit of your background.
Pretty similar to yours, I guess. I had a cousin back in India. That's when I first started supporting United in around 2003. I think that was the Invincible season.
Nice.
And we had Ruud van Nistelrooy. I'm pretty sure he was the one who got me into United.
Oh, well, yeah, I think you picked a good time to come in. A very good player to follow. We'll have a chat to Ashish a little bit later when he joins us. But to begin with, obviously, everyone's already listened to the Liverpool version, and, you know, whether you liked it or not, it's up to you. But, you know, this guys is what you expect. We're going to have a look at United, more specifically in this podcast. To start off with, we're going to have a look at an overview of the season that's just gone. A lot of good things, a lot of bad things, a lot of controversy, and always with United being in the news. They're one of the biggest clubs in the world, obviously. They have a large following and a large brand globally. So anything to happen with them usually very quickly gets into the media. The start of the season, obviously, we had Jose Mourinho signed as manager, so straight away, massive expectations come with a manager of that calibre. First of all, I just wanted to go to Vishnu first. What were your expectations coming into the 2016-17 season, knowing that we had a manager such as Mourinho coming in?
Look, I knew our squad sort of needed a bit of an overhaul from last season, considering the lack of goals we had, of course. And with Mourinho, well, he's a pretty good manager, obviously. Without the signings that we made, I was expecting probably like top four, I'd say. Top four. But with the signings we made, especially after Pogba, Ibrahimovic, Mkhitaryan, I was expecting a title challenge. So it was a little disappointing in the end when we ended up sixth.
I can agree with a lot of those points. Ashneel, how do you feel about just before the season even started with Mourinho coming in as manager? What were your feelings before the season? You know, before it even kicked the ball, how were you feeling?
Well, before Mourinho's announcement, I was pretty vocal about wanting Mourinho in, wanting him to manage our side, given that he was available at the time, that sort of thing, and given that he's top manager, and obviously he's free. Why not go get him? So when we signed him, I was, you know, pretty happy with that because I knew we'd be challenging for the title. Maybe not in the first season, but definitely in the second.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely agree with that. Oh, sorry, you can continue, Ashley.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to add on, in terms of the first season, I wasn't expecting too much. Pretty much like with Moyes and Van Gaal, I was expecting, you know, a rebuilding process as such. Because, I mean, new manager, need to get used to new tactics again, adapting with playing as a team again, trying to adapt a winning mentality, definitely a more aggressive attacking style compared to under Louis van Gaal. And, yeah, look, I was hoping for the best, but I didn't think we were going to win the title, even with the signings that we had.
I think that's a fair and balanced opinion, and look, I was a little bit the same. I think when we had Mourinho announced as a manager, we know the pedigree that he's got in terms of the clubs he's been at the past, with whether it be Porto, into Milan, Chelsea and Real Madrid. The bloke's gone, you know, wherever he's gone, he's won stuff. Generally, if not in his first year, he's done it pretty soon after that. So he's got a reputation of being a manager that's able to win titles and trophies. Even before we'd kicked the ball, I was reasonably confident with him coming in that we'd be able to mount maybe a title challenge. Once we'd got, obviously, Pogba, Zlatan and Mkhitaryan, as Vishnu said, I felt we had a good chance of being able to do so. Even I've just pulled up my predictions for last season, and I had us finishing in second behind City. And I honestly didn't expect Chelsea to have the season. I don't think anybody did. But at the end of the day, I think with the signings that we've made, or that we made particularly for this season, I think finishing in 6th was probably a little bit disappointing. We've still got Champions League football, however, so I think we can look at that towards that as a positive. Speaking of positives, well, that's what we're going to start with talking about with this season. I think that obviously the main thing we've already touched on is the fact that Mourinho was able to come in with no Champions League, we only had Europa League, and be able to attract the names like Pogba, Zlatan, Bailly, who we haven't even mentioned yet, who was probably behind Ander Herrera as one of the contenders for Player of the Season, in my opinion. What do we all think? If you could think of one thing that stood out, whether it be a moment, whether it be a game, what would it be? We'll start with Ashneel. If you could pick one moment for the season that's a highlight for you, what would it be?
Not gonna lie, I'm gonna take it all the way back to pre-season when Zlatan scored that overhead kick against Galatasaray.
That got you that excited back then.
Look, I could feel big things when Zlatan signed, and honestly, starting with an overhead kick, that's just Zlatan things. You could tell that there were going to be goals this season. Definitely going to be a lot more than we had under Van Gaal. And, given the quality of our team, I thought, we're definitely going to have a lot more goals than us. So, I'm looking forward to how the season's going to go. And then, obviously, the 2-1 against Leicester in the Community Shield. That kicked off things. Got us a trophy first season. Well, first trophy of the season. Although it isn't that big, it's still,
it's definitely a good way to start.
It's a trophy.
It puts you on the right foot coming into the season, definitely. Anything else to add to that?
Not so much. Really impressed with Bailly throughout the season. Herrera, amazing as usual. Really happy with Zlatan's performance as well. That's about it.
What about yourself, Vishnu?
I felt sort of the same, when we started off, I felt like we started off pretty well, especially that game against Southampton, the first game. Did we play Bournemouth or Southampton first?
We played Bournemouth first.
Bournemouth, where Ibra scored that goal from range, 30 yards. We started off pretty well. I felt like we looked pretty attacking. First half was a bit sluggish, we kept on holding onto the ball, just under Van Gaal. And second half, we really opened things up, played a lot of attacking football, and it was pretty good watch, I'd say. But probably most memorable moment of the season, I would say, obviously, the Europa League win.
I can't not agree with that. It was definitely worth getting up at 4:30 or 4:45 in the morning to watch. But no, I think for me personally, in terms of, just pure happiness and delight. Obviously, the Europa League title's right up there, but I think for me, it's probably going to be the Chelsea, the Chelsea game where we beat them 2-0. Was that Old Trafford, wasn't it? It was. I'm pretty sure it was Old Trafford. Just because of what had happened in the first game, and I remember staying up and watching the first game. Sort of sitting there going, this is going to be, I think, was this just after the derby, I think? Or was it not long after the derby? Because I think the derby was only a couple of rounds in.
Yeah, it was a couple of rounds after the derby, I think.
So derby was in round 3, and then we had Watford after that, which we're not going to speak about that game ever again. Then we had the Leicester game, where we won, as Ashneel had corrected me many times, 4-1. That was amazing to watch. And then
that was fantastic.
It was a bit further. It was a bit later than I thought, actually. Yeah. But it was match day 9. We lost 4-0, and I think after that happening, with Pedro scoring the first minute of the match, I'm going into this second Chelsea game just going, it's going to be a repeat again. Chelsea by this point are probably running away with the league and looking really, really good. So I'm sitting there at the Pig and Whistle, I don't think Ashneel was there, which is probably why we won.
I wasn't there.
No, he wasn't, which is why we won. But
Definitely why.
I remember just sitting there, and just from the first whistle, you could tell that something was different from the last time. There was that swagger that United used to have. They go out on the pitch, and you could just, you just felt that aura of, intimidation in a way. Like, recently Old Trafford has not become a place where teams come and they're intimidated. It used to be the old days, you'd have teams that come to Old Trafford, they'd be happy to come away with a point. These days, we're happy if we can leave Old Trafford with a point. So, which is what usually happens this season. But to see us go out the way we did, looking so positive, so full of energy, and Rashford, I think it was getting that first goal, was just... I think it was Herrera who played him through. It was just absolutely great start to the game. I was so happy. Everyone was jumping around, hugging each other. And I think it was a good place to be. It was a good atmosphere because we hadn't had a lot of success at home last season. It was good that we finally decided to rock up against the team that eventually went on to win the title. So for me, I think in terms of just pure emotion, that was probably the highlight of the season, and I think Mourinho got it right, and that's sort of what I want to touch on before we move on. He got it right that day with the tactics. In the first match, I'll talk about the first match against Chelsea, he decided to have Hazard, I think was it Phil Jones who was man-marking Hazard?
Yeah.
And I think it was Phil Jones, and for me, that's not why we lost the game, but for me that was a poor decision because Hazard is a very quick, very nimble player, and you can't have somebody with Phil Jones who turns like the Titanic at best.
Definitely.
You can't have somebody of his mobility and speed marking a man who's probably going to do the 100 metres in about 10 and a half, 11 seconds, and I think that's where Mourinho got it right the second game, where you still needed somebody with a bit of physicality to mark him, and you've got Herrera who can do that, but he's got a bit more speed about him, which meant you've got someone from the midfield doing that. The back four can worry about doing their job, and I think that's an instance where Mourinho got it right in terms of tactics. And I'm
pretty sure he tried in the 1-0 FA Cup loss to Chelsea as well. He tried to get Herrera to man-mark Hazard, but given the amount of fouls on Hazard, Herrera got sent off, and then he lost.
And look, I think that was the one where it was somewhat controversial. I think who was it? Michael Oliver was the referee, I think, for the match, and he basically just said the next person who fouls Hazard's going to get a card.
Yeah.
Which I personally don't agree with. Like, I can understand, fair enough, the bloke's being targeted, and it's probably persistent infringement, but I don't think it was very intelligent on Herrera's part to go in like that on Hazard when he knew he was already on a card, and he'd heard what Michael Oliver had said to the rest of the players. So, we obviously had seen that was what Mourinho had thought about doing, but he got it right in the league game at home, and we were able to pick up the points. Now... Also, did you have something to add there, Vishnu?
I definitely thought, during that Chelsea game, his tactics were on point. Especially the way we played, we completely shut Chelsea down. What was it? They barely had any chances, I think. What was the one shot on target?
Just going back to look it up now, according to these stats, Chelsea dominated the ball, obviously. According to what I'm using, it had 73%. They had 73% possession. They had 20 shots and only 5 of them were on target. We only had 4 shots with 1 on target, which is what I'm going to touch on the next little bit. But, they had 5 shots that were blocked out of the 20, and obviously 5 of them were on target, which means there's another 10 that have missed completely. So
what I remember from that game was it was none of them were clear cut chances. They were all either from long range or when we had the goal covered pretty easily. So so that was sort of my take on that game.
I think the irony is as well that probably the worst person, or maybe not the worst. We know Kante obviously is a very good ball winning midfielder and he's very agile and quick, but he's not really the best player with the ball at his feet. He's known obviously for his distribution skills being bloody everywhere, but he's not known for being able to whip a 1-2 with somebody getting behind the line and score, which from recollection is pretty much what happened.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, I think, as I agree with you, you got the tactics right that match, but having Herrera sent off ultimately meant everybody else was working harder.
Yeah,
For
definitely.
the rest of the match, and like from memory as well, he got sent off in the first. Was it the first half he got sent off? It was.
I believe so.
35th minute.
Yeah.
So you're then playing 60 minutes with 10 players, and if you're doing that at any level, it's going to be difficult. But at that level, so did you have anything further to add, Ashneel?
Just on that 1-0 loss, I think we were pretty lucky to get not really lucky, but I think we did well to keep them to only scoring one goal with having 10 men down. Although
definitely agree with that.
I feel like half of that would be due to Mourinho's park the bus tactic, which he probably would have used. I'm not too sure, given the stats of the game, because I can't remember them off the top of my head.
Well, we only had, like I said, I think they had not even 30% possession. So Mourinho was obviously very happy to let Chelsea just have the ball and work it around, and was trusting the back line on the day, which... Who was it? It was... Who we have? Phil Jones, Smalling, Rojo, and I think we had a 5 at the back that day, because it had Jones, Smalling, and Rojo as the centre backs, and you got Antonio Mensah and Darmian playing as wing backs. Looking at this with
I remember.
with Young and Mkhitaryan playing ahead of them, and Rashford up top, obviously Pogba, Herrera in the midfield. So I obviously wanted to try and match up Chelsea in terms of a formation with a 3-4-3 and see how that went. Alright, this is actually quite a nice segue into the next section I'd like to talk about. We've already touched on a bit, which is the negatives. Obviously with the club like United comes a reputation and an expectation, given the resources that we have, that we would be challenging for the title most years. Obviously, we've already touched on the fact that we're all a little bit disappointed that we finished in 6th, given, albeit most of them were draws. We went, how many? Was it 20 games unbeaten, or a bit more than that unbeaten?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the worst unbeaten run ever.
So we've gone, was it 20 or 25 games unbeaten and haven't moved anywhere in the ladder? But that's, looking at the negatives... Obviously, the problem was the fact that the main problem was we weren't scoring enough goals. If you look at
my attendance at the Pig.
Yes, your attendance at the Pig didn't help either, and official directive from Bemis actually has been added into the minutes of the AGM is that you will be banned from attending any further matches until such time you can prove that you have rid yourself of whatever case that created that prevented us from winning any home matches. So if it's an away game, you're more than welcome to attend, but if you have a home game, then you're going to have to prove otherwise.
Sit it out.
Yeah, you're going to have to either sit it out or prove that you're worthy. Now, Ashish has told me he's good to go. So let's see if we can get him in. While I'm trying to work out how to get him in, what I would like to talk about is the fact that we lacked a final product this season. We've we've got players. Oh, that is Ashish. Hello. No, I can't hear you. There we go. Welcome, Ashish. He's come back after stuffing his face with chicken. We've just finished off talking about with our positives of the season, actually. So while I've got you here, before we move on, firstly, can I get just a little bit about yourself? Just to, how long you've been watching United and supporting them as a team, and then we're going to. I just want you to pick one moment from the season that was a highlight for you.
Yeah, so I started watching United in the late 1990s, and after that, I only really got into it after the 2002 World Cup. Obviously, I did watch a lot of our games in the late 1990s, but I wouldn't really call myself a United fan at that stage. I was still pretty young. But after that, I really got into my football after the 2002 World Cup, and haven't really looked back since. On our positive season, look, I'm a realist, and going into the season, I was excited with Mourinho being announced as our manager. I was really excited after our first few signings, but at the same time, and I think I told you this at the start of the season as well, Ben, I would be happy with finishing in the top 4 and the main priority for me was that we get back into the Champions League next season. Obviously, how things transpired was not according to how I thought it would go. Obviously, us finishing 6th, not part of the plan, but yeah, I'm definitely very happy with us finishing with the Europa League and thereby getting into the Champions League.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as I talked to the other lads about, we're going to move on. Obviously, we've talked about the positives of this season, the things that went right. But unfortunately, as I said with United, people have high expectations, and as we've all said, that we feel like we've fallen a bit short on some aspects. So, obviously, the main problem for United this season was the lack of a final product moving forward, even with the signings we had. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, excuse me, is a big marquee signing up front, and Pogba in behind him, and Mkhitaryan either playing behind or either side of him, and Baye at the back. I feel like there's almost an expectation, given the stature of those players, that they're going to, even though that they haven't played together before, that once they gel, they're going to be very difficult to beat. But in the end, that didn't happen. And I think the problem was not only just at home, but it was against smaller teams as well. And Ashneel will recall this because he was there for those games. Specifically, the ones that come to mind immediately were, I think, the Bournemouth game at home, which we didn't win. That was 1-1.
Yeah.
Was it Burnley as well?
Yeah.
That was the game that obviously Heaton had an absolute blinder and just made, 12 saves or something on his own. And then the third one that comes to mind, was it Stoke at home, or did we play them away that game? I think it was Stoke at home, because the away game,
it was home.
Rooney got a goal last minute from a free kick.
Yeah.
And I'll start with you, Ashish, just because you've just come here. What do you think, in your opinion, the issue was, given the players we had and how good they were attacking-wise? Why couldn't, at the end of the day, what happened? Why couldn't they get it done and produce the goals that we needed?
Look, I think the issue there was our finishing. We definitely created a lot of chances, or as our ex-manager would say, chances. But yeah, we definitely created a lot of chances, and I think the main man behind that was Paul Pogba. But we were very, very wasteful in front of goal. I can think of at least 15 or 20 chances this season where Pogba has pulled an absolute blinder of a pass out from God knows where, and it's landed at someone's feet or on someone's head, but the keeper's either saved it, or it's hit the crossbar, or it's hit the post, or it's been cleared off the line. And I mean, those are the ones that you just have to figure out a way to put it at the back of the net.
And I've just gone a quick Google search. This season, this is according to Scorecard, we've scored 54 goals and conceded 29. So that would obviously leave us, with a goal difference of about plus 20, plus 25, something like that.
25, yeah.
We only, from those 54 goals, of course, this is according to Scorecard, 447 chances created, and only 54 goals scored. That's pretty much. That says what Ashish has just talked about, I think, in a nutshell. The fact that we've had so many chances that should have been goals but just weren't, and whether that comes down to being lazy or not paying attention or not putting the effort in, I'm not sure. Did you have anything further to add to that, Ashish?
Not really, but I think the blame is. I don't like to use the word blame, but I think in this case it's the correct word to use. The blame is across the board, really. I mean, I can't really think of a single player who has not wasted a chance this season. Especially our forwards, obviously, being given the most chances. But yeah, it's across the board. I can remember Rashford running in behind a couple of times and either the keeper saving his shot or just going wide. Same with Zlatan. Yeah, it was just very, very wasteful in front of goal the entire season, really.
Definitely. Ashneel, did you have anything to add to what Ashish has said, or do you pretty much just agree with what he's put forward?
There's nothing I can really add to that. That's pretty much summed up our season in a nutshell in terms of our negatives. And, like, I feel like half of those chances that we created were from outside the box. So just having a shot at goal when there was nothing on, just to, try and change the momentum, see if we can, get a goal out of nowhere. Probably explains all of Pogba's, shots into the woodwork as well. And another negative I wanted to touch on is our quality from corners and just crossing in general.
Well, I think we know why that we haven't had the quality from corners. It's because since Van Gaal has left, we haven't had Phil Jones taking them.
Well, that, and also, I don't even know what's going wrong with the corners. That, every time we take a corner, I'm always like, oh, this is shit. This is wasted. Nothing's going to come of this.
I can totally agree.
And then the Leicester game happened.
Yeah, the Leicester game. We scored. Was all 4 goals off the corner, or was it 3 goals?
I think 3 of them.
3 goals.
Yeah, it was 3 goals. Yeah, so that was pretty insane. I wasn't expecting that at all.
No, because you've got teams, particularly teams like Crystal Palace or West Brom, will come to mind, who are have a good reputation from being defensively good on set pieces and offensively good. Tony Pulis particularly, just because of the way he sets up. Very, very... He provides a lot of structure. It might not be pretty football, but it works most of the time. You've got that structure there. Everybody knows what they've got to do, and you've got these big bastards in the box ready to either get it on their noggin and score, or get it on their noggin or on the laces and just get rid of it. And, when you're playing those type of teams, particularly as United, even defending corners, I was worried, just because you didn't feel confident. And when you've got a ball coming in from the corner, it didn't feel like it was an attacking opportunity. It's just like, oh, okay, it's a corner, just going to come in and it'll go straight back out, or the keeper will catch it.
Yeah.
So that was definitely
I think if I was to summarize our corner taking, let's leave the defending for now, but when we've been taking corners, the only way, apart from the Leicester game, obviously, that's just a statistical anomaly, but for the rest of the season, our corner taking has just been lethargic. There's just been no movement. There's been, we might have created the odd chance, but I mean, again, those either hit the woodwork or saved on the line, or cleared off the line, or saved by the keeper. And that... I'm sorry, but for Manchester United, that's just not good enough.
And it's particularly criminal given we've got, Zlatan Ibrahimovic when he was fit, Pogba, Smalling, Jones, all of these players, or Fellaini when he played as well, they're all big players. They've got a good physical presence. You'd think we'd be able to convert more of those chances into goals, given we've got players who are very good in the air, Fellaini particularly. But it obviously just didn't materialise in the end, and that was one point particularly where we fell down this year. Attacking in general and finishing quality was poor, but attacking from corners, as Ashneel rightly has pointed out, has just hadn't been there all year. Apart from the Leicester match. Does anyone else have anything to add to this?
Yeah, well, basically, like Ashish said, our movement wasn't good enough, but the main thing I noticed was most of the balls that were going in were not going into the right spots where our players were. They'd fall short, or they'd be too long. Yeah. Usually you're looking, exactly. At this level, you're looking for a ball that's either curling in or curling away, somewhere between the penalty spot and the edge of the area, because these guys have got enough power on a head or a chest or a volley to be able to put it in from there. So, and I completely agree with that. It doesn't, and that's part of the reason I think you can't. I don't think you can put all the blame on the players in the area given their stature, but if you're not putting the ball into the right areas from those situations, then you're not going to be able to get anything out of it. Yeah.
Now that we've touched a little bit on the negative, so does anybody have anything else to add before we moved on? No, it's okay. Silence is deafening. Beautiful. quickly, we're going to have a talk about the new blokes that we brought in this year. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, we were able to bring in some quality signings, given the fact that we only had a Europa League football, and we now have Champions League football coming into the new season. But who are the new lads? Pogba, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, obviously, Eric Bailly, Henrik Mkhitaryan. Was there anybody else?
That was it, wasn't it?
I think that was it.
I think
Sorry, Ashish?
I was just agreeing that those were the 4 that we signed.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of these blokes, who do you think out of the 4 performed the best? And well, obviously give a bit of reason why. And who do you think possibly has a bit to improve on? We'll start with you, Ashneel.
Oh, okay. Well, in terms of who performed the best, I'm trying to toss it up between Zlatan and Bailly. Like, hands down, Zlatan delivered what we expected him to deliver. Goals. Pretty sure he was the only player to reach double figures in the Premier League for our team.
Yeah.
I can confirm that.
And Bailly's self-explanatory, just rocking the back, calm as fuck, you know, like. I can't really add anything to Bailly. He's just been a rock at the back, solid, pretty much everything we expected. A couple of blimp moments in the red card in the semi-final of the Europa League, sorry. But yeah, that's about it, really.
I think that's what United had been lacking, and I'll move on to you, Vishnu, in just a second, but I feel like we needed somebody to replace Vidic, because we had obviously the centre-back pairing of Ferdinand and Vidic there for so long, and you've got Vidic who's this big, massive, you know, even when he's not near you, he's just a physical presence because of how big the bloke is, and he's just such a solid defender, and I think that's what we've been lacking. You know, this is nothing to take away from Phil Jones and Chris Smalling and the other blokes, but Vidic is he's just a tough, reminds me a lot of, in ways of Michael, of, was it Roy? Roy Keane, sorry.
Yeah.
Just a hard bastard, gets stuck in and does the gritty hard stuff, and if you come, you know, if you go into a challenge with Vidic, there's a good chance if he wins the ball, you're going to end up on your ass. And we needed somebody like that, with that stature, who's going to get in there, get stuck in. You saw that Bailly wasn't afraid to jump in and try and win the ball. When he did it, he did it. You know, he jumped, he got the ball. It wasn't just a hack or just a half-assed effort to win it. He got in there, he got stuck in, and he won it, and he got rid of it. We'll jump on to you next now, Vishnu. What did you think in terms of the signings and how they fared?
Yeah, like what Ashneel said, best signings, obviously Zlatan or Bailly. I personally think that Zlatan was probably more impactful than Bailly, just considering without his goals we would be kind of screwed.
Yes.
But yeah, Zlatan and Bailly, best signings. I'd say the signing who's probably done the worst has been Mkhitaryan, just because he's been so inconsistent. He didn't start off well, as you can tell from that Man City game, where he was completely awful, and then he got dropped from our squad for a while, and then he came back, and he had that game against Spurs where he did really well. He scored that goal, and we won against him. I think it was 1-0, was it?
I think it was 1-0.
Against Spurs, yeah. So, yeah, and then we saw like a few bright sort of flashes from him, but then he sort of regressed again for a bit. He was like, overall he was a bit inconsistent. He showed really bright flashes, but didn't have like good games after that, and yeah,
agreed.
That's what I sort of felt like with Mkhitaryan.
That's fair. And just to clarify, it was him that got that goal against Spurs as well for that 1-0 win.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Ashish, in terms of the players we signed? Who do you feel was best, and who do you think has a little bit to pick up?
Yeah, for me, the best player this season, in terms of our new signing, was definitely Eric Bailly. I think without him at the back, we would have definitely struggled. Not just, as you said, he has that Vidic sort of presence. He goes in for the tackle, and I mean, like, we do have other guys there that do go in for the tackle, similar to the Vidic style of play, but the difference with Bailly and with Vidic was they came out with the ball, and at the end of the day, they really put their bodies on the line, really.
Whereas you'd see Rojo come flying in with his studs up, and you're just praying he didn't get sent. But because there were a few times where he'd come flying in.
Just on that Rojo note, I definitely think that Rojo has probably been our best or most improved player this season, because
definitely
compared to previous seasons, he was just phenomenal this season.
I think him and Jones, I think, when was it Bailey, was he away injured, or was he away for Africa Cup of Nations? I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. AFCON, he was away for a bit.
So you'd had, I believe at the time we did have a few injuries as well, so we had the centre-back pairing of Jones and Rojo, and I think a lot of people were surprised as to how well they played together, because we all know that, at the best of times, Jones can be a liability, but he also has a habit of being able to just pull something out of his arse.
Yeah.
And you just sort of, where's that been for a while, and then he'll manage to get injured and just disappear again. But I definitely can agree with Ashish, with Rojo being the most improved.
Just on that Rojo, I think that he's had such a good season just because he's been playing like his preferred left centre back role. I remember last season Van Gaal used to play him at left back, and he was pretty awful at left back. And then earlier this season, Mourinho during preseason, I think he got played at left back again, and he was pretty awful there. So I think that's again that his natural centre back position is probably where he's best at, obviously.
Yeah. Definitely. Now I feel like that's a reasonably comprehensive wrap of what we've gone through. Obviously, we could talk for hours and hours on end of what we thought about individual games and individual performances, and I think we can all agree on the fact that we were definitely underperforming for the majority of the season. But we've now got the upcoming season to look forward to. Obviously, Mourinho's hanging around. He hasn't decided to bugger off. We're unsure at the moment what's happening with Zlatan, obviously with his long-term injury. But the thing I would like to talk about first off is the signing that we have already made, being Victor Lindelof coming from Benfica. What was the fee for that? Was it about 30 million?
30 million, yeah.
About 30 million. Obviously, Benfica have a reputation of just being able to produce talent after talent after talent, and then sort of just shipping them off and making a massive amount of money from it. Obviously, you've seen already Edison has gone to Manchester City for a record fee for a goalkeeper. You had last season Renato Sanchez leave to Bayern Munich. You had Gaetan move, I think, was it the same transfer window after he
should
was...
have been to United.
He was linked with us for months and months and months, and Wenger probably said he tried to sign him as well. But at the end of the day, Lindelof coming in, I feel, is a very, very good move, and obviously an indication of what Mourinho plans to do coming up this season. Obviously, there's been a lot in the press, particularly lately, about what he allegedly said to Smalling before the Champions League final, which is the Europa League final, Champions League final, I can dream. Obviously, was quoted as saying that we're not going to be playing out of the back with your feet. And with Victor Lindelof coming in, obviously being most noted as a ball-playing centre-back. I'll start with Vishnu on this one. Do you think this start is showing Mourinho's intent possibly with a change of tactics? Because obviously having Fellaini in the midfield and clearly didn't trust Smalling on the ball, we had a lot of balls going long with Fellaini knocking them down and feeding them off. Do you think this could be a change of tactics for Mourinho moving forward to having a more ball-playing centre-back?
It could be, because we saw from last season where when we had Smalling and Jones at the back, like our ball playing abilities on that, like I forgot what game it was, but it was pretty awful. I feel like the only time where we played well out of the back was when we had Blind at centre back. That was probably because Blind is a pretty good ball playing centre back when he does play centre back. So I do think that this signing sort of going forward, it sort of means that he wants to go to a more ball playing centre back.
And obviously, I'll go to Ashley in just a second, because he was the one that brought this up before we started. How does this affect then players like Smalling or Jones or Blind? Because obviously, if they're playing a back four formation, there's only going to be 2 centre back spots, and you think Bailly's going to get the other one. So where does that leave the other guys?
Look, I think the one that's going to go is probably Smalling. Just because he's still young, he's English, we can probably sell him off for a pretty good fee if there are suitors. There's probably going to be suitors. He was a really good centre back last season, but I do think Smalling has regressed just because of Mourinho's marking system. I think going to a more zonal marking system, I don't think Smalling's good at that. Like last season when Van Gaal played, I think it was a man marking system, was it?
I think so.
Remember? Yeah, so Smalling obviously excelled in like that season just because he had someone to mark. But I think he's a bit
was a bit out of his depth when he sort of had to think and move around, and then went, I actually have to think for myself now, not just hug the guy that I'm trying to mark. Ashley, how do you feel about this thing? Is you're the one obviously that brought this up before we started.
Look, I think Lindelof was brought in as like an improvement for Blind. Fucking hell. Yeah, because like we needed a ball playing centre back, and Blind was pretty much the only one that could do that. So now we've pretty much got an actual a solid defender, who's A, tall, B, can win headers, can take free kicks, etc. So we have an improvement over Blind that we can play in centre back, and the one I'm most concerned about is Rojo, because he had a really good season last season.
Are you sort of concerned that he's going to be frozen out now by Mourinho and get disgruntled and look elsewhere?
I feel like he'll look for more first team football. So, but I do think he'd definitely be first choice after Bailly and Lindelof.
Look, if one of Bailly or Lindelof goes down, heaven forbid, with injury, I feel that he would definitely be first in line.
Injury or AFCON. Because I can see Lindelof and Rojo being a centre-back pairing, especially if Bailly goes back to AFCON.
That's not every year. That's not every year though, is it?
That's not every year.
It's every 2 years.
Yeah. Every 2 years.
But
so definitely happy.
Do quite understand.
Yeah, I hope he does stay for the long run and doesn't leave for first team football.
What are your thoughts about this, Ashish?
Yeah, when we signed Lindelof, I was very happy, obviously, because we have, as you guys have already discussed, now the ball playing centre back, who's actually a centre back, rather than playing Blind, who's not really a centre back. Other than that, I also have the concerns with Rojo maybe wanting to leave, but at the same time, he's at Manchester United and he signed for us. He wants to play. He obviously wants to play for us. And I think with this upcoming season, we have four different leagues / cups that we're in. So there's definitely going to be a lot of football to play, and he's going to be up there.
I think that's very important as well. It's something that I don't think anyone else has touched on yet. Given the amount of football we're going to have this year, obviously we've got the usual 38 league matches. Obviously both domestic cups, the Capital One or whatever it's called these days, FA Cup, and now it's Champions League. We're going to have probably an excess of 50 matches to play throughout the season. Given
last season we had about 64ish.
We had 64. Oh, okay.
That's with Europa League.
So obviously we're going to have a lot of games to play, and I think having that squad depth is important, because you saw at the end of the season, I think that was probably the most iconic thing at the end of the Europa League final, seeing all of the injured players hobbling onto the pitch in their crutches at the end. And I think that sort of summarised our entire season, was that we had so many players injured at any given time, but we were still able to pull, or most times we were able to pull something. And you could probably say, maybe not, you could probably say that team that played against Ajax probably wasn't the best team we could put on the park, given the personnel we had in the physio room. So
and suspended.
and suspended as well. So I think having that squad depth is extremely important given the amount of football that's going to be played this season, and hopefully Rojo will realise that, and he will get his chances, even if he's not in the starting 11 for the league matches. He'll get a run in the cup for sure. So obviously that's sorted out the Lindelof situation, and as I've got written in the agenda here, RIP Smalling. Moving forward, obviously we're in that silly season where people have gotten bored in between the end of May and the start of August, and even the start of July, which is when the transfer window officially opens, and everybody is making up any rumour that they can to try and sell a newspaper or get a following on Twitter. Obviously, United, given where we sit in terms of the clubs in the world, obviously very sought after, and we usually get linked with every single player known to man every transfer window. Obviously, moving forward, there are a few key positions that needed filling. Lindelof's position was one of them. Moving forward, I think we can all agree with, and I know I harp on about this more than anyone, we need a holding midfielder who can just sit there and let Pogba and whoever else is with him, hopefully Herrera, just do their thing and let the wing-backs get forward. And we probably, given that Zlatan is going to be out long-term, we're going to need a striker, and that's where I'm going to start. For a long time now, probably for the last month or so, we have been linked with Alvaro Morata from Real Madrid, and it's sort of one of those ones where stuff keeps getting reported, but nothing has happened, as tends to happen with most windows. I'll start with you, Ashish, on this one. Do you feel that Morata would fit into Mourinho's squad, given the players we already have? How do you think he would play under the system, and do you think going forward would he bring a long-term benefit and goals, obviously, which is what we're looking for?
Okay, I could have saved you a lot of pain with asking me all these questions, because from the start, I don't really know much about Morata. I don't really follow any of the other leagues, so I don't really know much about too many of the other players. That being said, I have watched, as everyone has, 1 or 2 YouTube videos, and I think based off my YouTube viewing, I believe that he might be able to do the job for us. He's obviously a goal scorer, and that's something we definitely need, especially with Zlatan out until at least December, January-ish.
Definitely. Ashneel, how do you feel on this? Are you sort of in the same boat as Ashish with regards to Morata, or do you have a little bit more knowledge on the matter?
I wouldn't say I have more knowledge, but just reading up about him on the United subreddit, pretty much the same thing. Because he's only 24 years old, I can see him being a long-term replacement. That too, not sure how it'll impact on Rashford's development, but I will be happy if he signs, given the fact that he has a really good scoring rate. I've read comments about him being a small team bully, but I think we definitely need that, especially considering our performances against the smaller teams in the previous season. Because we want to be turning those draws into wins.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, have you got something else to add, Ashneel?
Just on his playstyle, I think I remember seeing he isn't too great with the ball at his feet. Not saying he's bad, just saying he's not too great. And I feel like he's more of a poacher. So, yeah, hopefully the quality in terms of balls into him is fantastic, and he can just latch onto him, score at will.
And I think that sorry, Ashish, you can go. Sorry.
I was just going to say I like the use of the word poacher there, because from the 2 minutes I spent on YouTube, I did notice that the person I could compare him to an ex-United player the most was Chicharito. And I reckon that would be a very
I was legit just thinking that now.
Yeah, as soon as you said poacher, the first name that came to mind was Javier Hernandez. And he, albeit he was always, he was usually second fiddle to Wayne Rooney or when Robin Van Persie came in. And he didn't get a consistent period where he was starting, but probably he was most effective coming off the bench as a poacher. And so many times, when we needed a goal late in the game to try and get a win or a draw, and that was Fergie's, just the way that Fergie went around. He would be there in the box, just at the right place at the right time to be able to put it past. I think the only one that didn't happen was that game against Chelsea, where I can't remember who's put the ball in from the right. Was it Ashley Young or Valencia? I can't remember. It might have even been Nani. But it's come in, and for all money, you think Chicharito has got a tap in at the back post.
Yeah.
Check's gone, I'm not having any of that. You can get fucked. And he's just pulled absolute world-class save out of his ass. But that's going off track a little bit. But I definitely agree. That's the kind of player that we have lacked, I think, simply because we haven't had a finishing product this season, and that's what's let us down the most. So even if they can, even if they're not the best technical player on the ball, if they can get into the box and get to the right place and put the ball in the back of the net, I think at the end of the day, that's all we can ask for. Did you have anything to add to this matter, Vishnu? Or?
Yeah, look, I don't think Morata's as bad on the ball as you guys think he is. If you I think it was last year's Champions League or the year before that, I remember Morata had a really good goal against Bayern, where he basically ran through half their defence from Juve's own half, and then he slipped the ball into Cuadrado, who finished it for the goal. But you can see his dribbling skills in that one, because he beat like three, four Bayern players literally just running through them.
Yeah.
So
I just haven't seen too much of it, so I can't.
Cool,
exactly.
that I could sort of remember from it. I'll try and find it on Reddit again, but yeah.
Clearly, I need to spend more than Ashish's 2 minutes on YouTube to try and find something like that. But clearly,
yeah, I've also.
Sorry, I'll let you finish off before I rabble on.
Yeah, I've also seen comments from like all these Madrid fans saying he is pretty good at like dribbling and all that. So I don't think he's just a poacher. I think he's probably more of a complete forward, I'd say, just judging off what I've seen so far and off Madrid fans.
Fair. And I feel that for him to be able to do his job, I think it was Ashneel who brought it up, that we need the service in behind him to be able to do that. And Pogba, of course, this season, albeit he was lambasted many a time for not pulling his finger out, but when he was on, he was just, and I think it showed in the most, I feel, maybe in the last game of the season against Palace, when he had all the kids around him. And that first half when he played, everything just went through him. And he just dominated that middle area. And for him to be able to do that, I feel, and whoever plays alongside him, and I really hope it's Herrera, for him to be able to do that and have the confidence to move forward a bit more, and that's where he's played best, is in a midfield three, and he showed that when France played, I think it was a World Cup a couple of years ago, it might have been at the Euros last year, when they played that midfield three, he was so effective when you had a deep player sitting in front of the backs, and he was able to sort of roam free and sort of do his thing. Going
against England a couple of weeks ago, he did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Ran circles around everyone.
Yeah, but that's only England.
Is that a midfield too? Or?
It is England, yeah.
But the point I'm getting to is here we need to be able to sign a quality defensive midfielder. At the moment we've got Fellaini. You can't really say he's, I don't know what he is, to be honest. He just sort of stands there and wins headers and gets sent off and concedes stupid
He has
goals.
immaculate chest control.
That's it. He has like 99 hair, but that's about it. We don't have somebody that stands out as that deep lying midfielder that sort of just sits in front of the back ball. Obviously you've got Carrick, but you can't rely on him long term. Obviously he's 34, 35 now, and he's probably got this season in him at most, and then I think that's it, gonna be it for him, given he's had his testimonial. And obviously there's been names thrown around for years, because this is a position United have needed to fill. Names been brought up in the past. I think William Carvalho's one that comes to mind, has been brought up a lot, not this season but in the past. More so this season, I feel he's been linked to a lot of clubs, and probably the one that I'd like to have the most is Fabinho from Monaco. I think, and he was a massive part of why Monaco did so well this year and were able to win the league, was because they had that confidence in the midfield. and who was playing off him, or would have been João Moutinho and someone else playing off him in the centre of the park. Bakayoko playing off him in the centre of the park. And you've got Bernardo Silva and, was it Lamar, I think, on the left?
Yeah, Lamar.
And you've got the two up front, Mbappe and, it might be Falcao, one of them playing up front, depending on what formation they've got. But I think having that confidence going through the middle of the park, and I'll start with you, Ashneel, on this one, I think having that confidence there in front of the centre-backs not only gives your other midfielders more opportunity to push forward and get creative, but it also gives opportunities to your wing-backs to get forward. So how do you feel about that, Ashneel? Obviously, it's a position that we've needed to fill for a long time.
I mean, yeah, look, I'd be really happy if we signed Fabinho. Means we can play the 4-3-3 with Pogba in a midfield 3 where he thrives the most. And allows Herrera to be, interchange between defensive and attacking as well, because we have seen Herrera's quality in both areas. Yeah. I'm not really sure what to add on this though.
Who else has been linked with us in terms of that position on the park?
Eric Dyer. Remember?
Dier.
I think Dier is probably the most linked to us, other than Fabinho, I'd say.
And then Matic was a couple of sources, but not too concrete.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. We haven't had anything concrete other than Lindelof.
Yeah,
sort of. You know, that.
Barada.
Morata's been pretty concrete.
Griezmann.
Yeah, that was a saga in itself. With the whole Real Atletico Madrid having their transfer ban upheld. But even on Morata, I don't feel that there's always been, they've agreed a fee, they've agreed personals, blah, 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 blah. That's been going on for a month now, and I haven't seen pen to paper. So until that happens, or we see a photo of him in a shit Chev going through Carrington to sign a contract, I'm not going to believe anything anyone says at this point. Ashish, how do you feel on this topic of holding midfield?
Yeah, it's obviously a very important position. I don't really know who we could sign. I know we've been linked with a few players, as you guys have just mentioned. Personally, I will wait and see what happens in that space. However, coming back to the transfer season, personally, I have been slightly disappointed. I know this, obviously, the official window hasn't opened yet. However, from previous seasons, Mourinho usually prefers to get his business done early. I know he's obviously on holiday or something right now.
I was probably sorting out his tax problems, to be honest. But
even then, I have been slightly disappointed. I expected us to have at least signed one or two more players than just the one that we've signed, being Victor. Over and above that, I think, I'm not really one to speculate too much. I just wait for what happens, and once I see it on the Man United website, that's when I believe it.
Yes, definitely agreed. Who have I forgotten? Is it Ashneel? No, Vishnu? Or Ashneel?
Yep. Was it?
Did you have anything else to add regarding the holding midfield position before I decide to move on to the stupid rumours that are never going to get anywhere?
just for Eric Dyer, from what I've seen, we've been linked to him the most. Especially with, I think it was Duncan Castles who said that we are interested in Dyer, and Duncan Castles is basically Mourinho's mouthpiece. So I think that rumour has some sort of substance to it, I'd say. But I don't think Eric Dyer is probably the right choice, especially because I don't think Daniel Levy will let him go for cheap. He'll probably demand 70, 80 million for him.
We know Daniel Levy's got a reputation of being able to squeeze every last penny out of any player that leaves that club, and I think obviously the most noted example of that is Gareth Bale leaving for some stupid amount of money for Real Madrid, and it's very poignant that you bring that up, because this sort of leads into our next sort of part of the podcast, where we're going to talk about all of the stupid transfer rumours that have come up, and I think we all know what's going to come up now. Is the one that comes up every year? No, not Schneider. Not Schneider. He's staying at Galatasaray. He's not moving. He's not coming to United. That's not
actually.
Yes. Now that I've said that,
I think I saw a rumor on Reddit this morning that was like Schneider in talks with Montreal or something.
Yeah, see, look, as soon as I said that he's not moving, I'm like, oh no, wait, I also did read something that said he was going to move. But obviously, the big thing that's been in the news recently has been Real Madrid and Cristiano Ronaldo throwing his toys supposedly over the fact that he's not being supported by the club when he's being investigated for tax fraud. Obviously, United's going to be the first club that gets linked. Just because of, well, obviously he came from us to go to Madrid, and, I think a lot of United fans have this sort of, even though they know it probably won't happen, they have this hope sort of sits in the back of their mind that maybe one day he'll come back and he'll retire here and it'll be wonderful and everything will be good again. And I think I'll start with you this time, Ashneel, just because I like picking on you. How do you rate this? In terms of 1 out of 10 being not going to happen, just no, and 10 out of 10 being it's nailed on to happen. What do you feel about this? First of all, in terms of whether you think it'll happen or not, and secondly, do we need him?
Is there a negative? Like negative 5 out of 7 for me, please. Legit, like I knew this was never going to happen. I just had a feeling, like, I don't think Ronaldo will come back to United. Like, Real Madrid is his boyhood club. Like, it's the club he's always wanted to go to. United was just a stepping stone to get there. And, like, he's done so well at Real Madrid, why would he consider moving? He's won the Ballon d'Or this year, he's top scorer in pretty much every league now.
Just to add to that, I read a statistic today that he has scored more goals than any professional footballer on the planet in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
In any professional league.
Yeah, I think I saw that as well. He scored like 58 goals or something. Something.
And that would have been from as many starts as well. I mean, the dude, I think he's probably, get barring, whatever happens this coming season, and we'll have to obviously keep an eye on, not that the Confederations Cup means a lot, but have a look at Portugal do there. I think today they got up 1-0 overnight over, was it Russia?
Yeah, and that was Ronaldo's goal.
Ronaldo obviously scoring. You'd think, given the fact that he's obviously won the Euros in the last 12 months, he's won the Champions League again, he's won La Liga again, surely you'd think he's very likely to win another Ballon d'Or.
You'd like to think so, yeah. But like, I see him doing that with Madrid more than any other team.
I don't think.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I'll move on to Vishnu next, but I don't think you're going to find anybody here that'll disagree with you on this. Vishnu.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, like Ashneel said, negative 5 out of 7, I'd say as well. As much as I'd love to have him, I reckon he would be a fantastic signing for us again. Obviously, he's a proven winner, he's a goal scorer, he's probably what we need, but it's just not going to happen, I don't think, unfortunately. But yeah, even with his aging knees, even if he's 32, I'll still take him, like, as long as the fee isn't like too crazy, like 250 million or whatever.
Well, I mean, given Mbappe's was rumored to go for 135 euros, you think Ronaldo would be like, what, 300 minimum?
Yeah.
Given his form and how long has he got left in his contract?
I think his contract is until 2021, I believe. And that being said, I think his release clause is over 280 million.
His release clause is 1 billion.
Well,
no idea. Absolutely no idea. But I know it's something he's saying that no one's heard.
So I think we can all safely agree that we all don't think this is going to happen.
And personally, like as nice as it would be to have a player like Ronaldo at Man United, I don't think we need him.
I agree.
I think we can get by without him. Sure, he'd be like literally the perfect striker, but I think we can get by without him.
Now that we've sort of all resigned to the fact that Ronaldo would ever be making his glorious return, I want to quickly touch again on Fabinho, just because I've just read that apparently, this is sort of, I've got 2 points here for this. Juventus apparently shown some interest in him, and they show interest in everyone, and they just buy all the best players in the Serie A every season. But the reason I bring up Juventus as well is because they apparently have shown some interest in signing our left back / right back Damian. And given the fact that they've just released Dani Alves, who, for all intents and purposes, we think is probably going to Manchester City at this point, unless, depending on who you believe and who you read, having someone like Damian move back to Italy isn't, I wouldn't rule it out. I'll start with you again, Ashneel.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't rule it out, but I really hope it doesn't happen, given the fact that we don't actually have too many backup options at left back or right back. Because, injuries to Valencia would mean, Young starting at right back, if not Damian?
What about Fosu Mensah or Dhanjee?
Is Mourinho going to put all his faith in youth, given the amount of games we need to play, given the amount of experience they have in first-team football, that sort of thing?
True. It's a catch-22, though. Is the only way that they're going to get more experience is by playing, but at the same time you want to play someone that's experienced. So
I feel like you need to ease them in, play them in the quote-unquote lesser games against the smaller teams, or play them in the cup games. Get them used to it instead of throwing them straight into the deep end.
All right.
Yep.
Did you want to pick it up from here, Vishnu, with what you think? Just talking about Damian now.
Yeah, I reckon Damian. Look, with the way this transfer window is going, I really don't want to get rid. I don't want to sell Damian. But if we do sell him, that means we're most likely going to go after Nelson Semedo, who's also really good.
Funnily enough, another Benfica player.
Exactly.
I didn't mention earlier.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though Nelson Semedo is really good right back, and it will probably grow to be one of the best right backs in the world, I still wouldn't want to get rid of Damian just because he's so valuable to us, especially because he can play left back, centre back, even centre back and right back. And he's just a really flexible, great player for us. Especially we saw in the Europa League final against Ajax. He was excellent. He was one of the best players on the team.
Agreed.
But yeah, especially if Juventus is going for him, we know Juventus is a bit, stingy. They're gonna really lowball us a fair bit. We're not gonna get what he's worth to us.
What did we pay for him initially from Torino? Was it
I think it was around 16 million or something.
17, 16, something like that. So, do you think we'd be lucky to get more than 15 back from him, given how stingy Juventus are?
Oh, yeah, I'd say so. I'd say Juventus will probably bid around 15 million. But I'd want 30.
I'd be happy with 30
yeah,
45.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think.
Alrighty. What do you have? Do you have anything to add on to this, Ashish, or?
No, I fully agree with what has been said, and I definitely would not want to let him go. Not willingly, anyway.
I agree with all of you with regards to this. I think even if he's not starting, and that's going to be something looking forward going into this season, is who's going to have that left back position. Is Mourinho going to give Shaw another go and see if he can pull his finger out, or will will that spot obviously go to Damian? So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic works. Because obviously, given that we want to have a world-class DM, as I said before, it gives your wing-backs more freedom and opportunity to overlap with the wingers and get involved in the attack. So at the end of the day, it comes down to who Mourinho feels is going to best suit that position going forward and backwards. And in terms of the effort they're putting in, there's obviously always been a question over Shaw's. Maybe, I don't know if commitment is the right word, but maybe just his focus. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you guys feel on this?
Even fitness, we saw last season he put on a bit of weight. That kind of, I don't think it was used to that at all. So I felt like that sort of impacted him pretty negatively.
And I feel like it's a confidence thing for him as well. I feel like he's a player that will thrive getting more game time and getting good performances. He just to me feels like that kind of player that thrives on having confidence. If you see players that sort of don't really need that go out there and throw themselves at everybody for 90 minutes, and if they lose the ball or they get beaten, they'll just turn around and chase straight away and not think anything about it. But I feel like Shaw having that confidence and being able to believe in his ability, that's a big thing. Particularly for a player his age, is 22, 23? Yeah. Barely older than any of us. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic moving forward. Now, obviously, anything that we would want to do with the transfer market would require Ed Woodward to pull his finger out of his arse and do something. So that's another thing that I might leave for a little bit later on in the transfer window. Other than that, the other thing I'd like to bring up before I start to wrap things up is James Rodriguez obviously has been linked with us probably more than Morata at this point, I feel, but nothing sort of happened there. Like, I think he's been linked to Chelsea as well, but nothing sort of happened. I'll start with Ashish on this one. Do you think we need him? And if he were to sign him, how would he fit in?
Well, it's very similar to my take on the previous players you've asked me about. I don't really know too much about him except his worldly goals that he scored in the World Cup.
I think that's all anybody knows about him.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But other than that, just from the little I know, I do know that he plays further up the field, and that's not really somewhere that we need to be looking at. And as we've covered, that we really need a central defensive midfielder, and as he doesn't really cover that, I don't really think we need him.
Ashish? No, sorry, not Ashish. Sorry, I just spoke to you. Ashneel, what's your take on the James Rodriguez situation?
I'm going to play devil's advocate for this and say I think he's an improvement over our current options in terms of fitting into the side. If we can get a defensive mid, we can play him next to play the defensive mid next to Pogba in a 4-2-3-1 with James in the 10.
Who do you drop then? No, you're dropping Herrera.
Herrera. I'm going to have to drop Herrera. If we want to include James and Pogba into a side, then I think we may need to drop Herrera unless he can perform those defensive duties.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear you say that.
Look, I love Herrera. Don't get me wrong. Herrera is amazing. I want him to stay forever. He is future captain material. But at the same time, if we want to play with a 10, I feel like we may need to drop Herrera, unless he can cover up for Pogba's quote-unquote defensive liabilities.
What do you think about this whole situation and blasphemy coming from Ashneel's mouth, Vishnu?
I agree with Ashneel here. If we do want to play with the 10, it will have to be Herrera who's going to be dropped. But I feel like the reason why James is being let go by Madrid is just because of the fact that no one really plays with a 10 anymore. You can see Madrid, they play basically Asensio, who's a centre mid, or Isco, who's another who plays a centre mid.
Just while you're on Asensio, sorry to interrupt, but how good has he been?
Yeah, Asensio's amazing.
Gareth Bale obviously being injured in that Madrid team, he's obviously been given a chance with Isco to get some game time ahead of James, and he has just been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, obviously Madrid were very prompt, and they offered him a new contract just recently, didn't they?
Yeah,
is that a thing that happened? I think they did, and they put some stupid release clause in it of 350 million euros or something. But just I've been watching highlights from the under 20s Euros or whatever competition they're playing, the under 21s, and he has been a very integral part of that Spanish team going forward. He scored a hat trick, I believe, in the first match. And I've looked earlier before we started this, and there was this video of him playing this filth no look pass, and the other player was just confused. I mean, obviously, he's quite young as well. Like, he would only be in his early 20s, and given how good he is already, he's obviously going to be a valuable asset to Madrid, and probably will be linked with United in the next transfer window, knowing how this all works.
Yeah.
And in terms of what I feel on the Hammers situation, I don't think we need him. I think we've got enough players in that position already. Obviously, with Rooney, I feel that's coming to an inevitable conclusion where he will either be benched to the point where he goes, I've had enough, I want to leave, or he's going to make the initiative himself and say, look, I want to get some more playing time, and I feel like the only way I'm going to do that is going to be able to leave. Given that, we have a lot of players who can play in that position. Obviously, we have Mkhitaryan who can play there. We have Mata who can play there. You could put Pogba there if you really, really wanted to. But as you said, there's not a lot of players who play with a 10. Most of these days, you're playing with a 3. You're playing a 3 through the middle of the park, or you're doing what the fashionable thing is these days, and playing with 3 at the back and having 4 or 5 in the midfield. So I think the role of a 10, and I think that's sort of slowly losing relevance. That was it was all the rage 5 years ago. You have your 4-2-3-1, and you have the 10 sitting behind the striker. Just now to probably to wrap up, we've obviously talked about who we feel we need. Going forward, let's assume that I'm going to make a few assumptions here. Let's say we get Morata, because it looks like it looks like it's probably of all the rumoured signings that we've had so far. It looks like I'm using most likely to happen in very, very loose terms here. That's probably the most likely one at the moment to go through. Let's say we sign a quality CDM, whoever that may be. Where do we feel? And I'll start with you this time, Vishnu. Where do we feel the expectations are coming to this season? Firstly, for our domestic football, and secondly, for the Champions League.
Yeah, look, I think it probably depends pretty heavily on who we sign, basically. But if we do end up signing all our targets, Morata, proper defensive mid, maybe another winger or whatever, I think that we can expect top 4 at least. I would like to be challenging for the title, but we'll see about that. It all depends on our second season with Mourinho.
It's difficult to speculate this early, but I guess I'm just trying and drag an opinion out of you that might be controversial, sort of go ooh, and hopefully try and get some reaction. How did you feel on this, Ashneel? What are you feeling for this coming season?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I'd like to make a better assessment once we actually get more signings.
I feel like I've sort of thrown Vishnu under the bus now, because I feel like Ashish is probably going to give me the same answer.
Yeah, just based on what's being signed at the moment, I think we're looking at definitely challenging for the title. But again, I'm hoping we do. I'm not sure how we're going to go, but I'm hoping we go for the title.
Obviously,
in terms of,
you keep going.
Champions League, sorry. In terms of Champions League, I'm hoping to make it past a round of 16. That'd be nice. Try and have a successful Champions League campaign.
I mean, obviously, we have to hope we don't do an Arsenal and get drawn against Bayern Munich, because obviously Arsenal won't be there this year. Poor Wenger. Yes. As you should, I've got to assume you're going to give me the same answer that Ashneel has given me.
Yes, similar, but at the same time, I think it's way too early to start making big calls like what we expect out of the season and whatnot. I suppose, let's first see what we're going to go into the next season with, as in which personnel we're going to go in with, and then we can probably make a call from there. That being said, though, there's a few key issues that I know that we may or may not have coming up. So I just wanted to ask the question here quickly.
Who do you think you are asking the questions here? What is this? No, go ahead.
This is just something I thought of a few minutes ago. Who do we think, well, with the Rooney rumours going around everywhere that he's off to Everton, who do you think we should make our captain?
It's funny that you should mention that, because actually I was actually put that in the Skype chat as a topic to talk about, and I was going to bring it up once we'd finished, but now that you've brought it up, I feel that's a good place to start. And since I won't shut up, I'll start on this. I feel like, for me, and I think the problem is, though, that we've been talking about signing another number 10. I don't think we should, just because I think the armband probably should go to Herrera. He's a lot. We have to, I think, look at two things. That obviously leadership quality in a player is very, very important, but you also need to look long term. Obviously, other candidates you can think of for the captaincy would be someone like, I think, Valencia, for example. He's been a long time player of the club, but he's probably coming to the end of his career. He's 31 years old now, I think. And there's a good chance that he may only be around for another few seasons before he either decides to move on himself or is moved on due to players being signed. But I think with that longevity in mind, I feel like Herrera is the best option. Like, he's all that gritty midfield player. Reminds me a lot of Roy Keane. He just gets stuck in. He doesn't give a fuck. He gets in there. He does the hard work, and he gets shit done. And I feel like those are the qualities that you need in a captain. You need them to be able to get stuck in there and have that leadership. I feel like in the middle of the park as well, it's probably where you most need it. We don't know obviously what's happening with De Gea, and it's very difficult to put him in any discussion regarding the captaincy, and I don't feel like having a goalkeeper as a captain is always the best idea, given that they're not in the middle of everything at the back, so it's hard for them to have a lot of influence. And that's neither here. That might be a moot point in the end, but I feel like Herrera is probably the best option going forward, given he is young, he's shown a lot of determination, grit and desire. He's genuinely, contrary to what a few other people think about his character, I feel like he's a genuinely good lad and would do a good, I think he would do the United captain's armband a good service. I'll go back to you now, Ashish, because you were the one that asked the question. What do you feel about this?
Yeah, I agree with exactly what he said. I think Herrera deserves it. He's got that passion, and I don't really see anyone else in our team having that same sort of passion to win and that drive to win that I see in Herrera. The other thing for me that probably puts Herrera in line to be the next captain would, as you said, be longevity. And over and above that, I think it's just that he, as you said, he's in the middle of the park. He can communicate with everyone. And I think the place we saw that the most was that Leicester goal where it came in from the corner, but it was actually Mata who was told by Herrera to go right to the touchline. And that's basically, he was basically dictating the play of that corner, and he was 40 yards back, almost on the halfway line. And,
can I add just to that? Herrera also instructed Mkhitaryan to go.
Yeah, I was going to add the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the qualities of a leader, and we really need a good communicator, and that's what I see in a player like Herrera. And yeah, that's why I think that even if Rooney stays, I believe that Herrera should get his go. I mean, well, we've had so many different captains this season with Rooney, Smalling, Carrick, Valencia.
Fellaini had it at one point, didn't he?
Fellaini had it for one
I think,
game.
doesn't Fellaini still have like 100% win rate as captain?
No, that didn't happen. What are you talking about? That never happened. No, Fellaini's shit.
Look, Ashley Young was even captain against Chelsea, I think.
Was that the second game?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the 2-0 win.
Oh, okay. I learned a new thing today. But I'll go to Vishnu now, just because he was able to add that point in there. Do you have any objection to what Ashish has said, or a different proposal for a captain, or are we going to stick with Herrera?
Herrera, definitely. Herrera, like my two sort of captains are probably Herrera or Valencia. But as you said, looking at the long term, I think probably Herrera's a better option.
Fair. Ashneel?
Nothing really to add on what you guys have already said. Although I think I read somewhere that Herrera feels like he's not ready for the captaincy yet. Something about him preferring someone English to be captain. The problem I have with that is that the English players in our squad that would probably make it into our team are like Shaw, Jones, Smalling, Rooney.
Are you trying to find a nice way to say this shit, or...? yeah, essentially. I don't see any of them consistently having game time for us. So the only logical conclusions would be Herrera or Valencia, and obviously I'm going to go with Herrera because Herrera. Okay, and just one more point before we wrap things up here. Ashish has just brought it up. Obviously, it's been on and off for a long time now, the rumours with David De Gea, and I heard personally that he went and bought Ed Woodward a brand new fax machine so that he wouldn't have any issues again. But I think the fact of the matter is that we just don't know at the moment what's going on. There hasn't been a lot of communication from him or the club regarding transfer to what we all think would be Real Madrid. Real Madrid haven't said anything with regards to this move. And just to start with, obviously, I'll start with you, Ashneel, just because you finished off last time. We're going to go hypothetical here. If De Gea does leave, do we sign a new goalkeeper? We've been linked with every goalkeeper under the sun, or do we stick with Romero, who has played a big part in the season just gone, particularly throughout the Europa League campaign?
Honestly, I wouldn't mind one bit, because currently we have Spain's and Argentina's number one goalkeepers playing for us. If De Gea leaves, I'm more than happy for Romero to take over. If we're not going to look at Romero as our long-term number one goalkeeper, I'm thinking we could probably look at Donnarumma, given that he's probably leaving Milan for a lot more moolah.
I believe he's now been renamed to Gianluigi Donnarumma. But no, I definitely agree with you with regards to that.
If we're going to look at long term, we can probably look at Donnarumma. And also, if we're going to go off top rated goalkeepers that are quite young still, probably Oblak or Leno.
Can I add another goalkeeper into this? I think Jack Butland is not a bad bet. His English is pretty good. Yeah, that's the issue. He's pretty lacking in fitness. I think what happened to his recent injury? Was it like a broken arm or something?
I don't even know at this point. I don't even know. All I know is that he missed most of the last season.
Yeah, but yeah, he was in pretty good form before this. But yeah, it just depends.
Butland's an option.
And being English as well, I don't think United personally has a problem with the homegrown quota, but. You know, are we going to pull him with the rest of the English players that Ashneel didn't want to say was shit and give him the armband? Or
Exactly.
Just to finish up, I'll go over to Ashish on this one. What do you feel with regards to the goalkeeping situation?
Yeah, as I mentioned previously in our discussions, I definitely think that we should stick with Romero. He's been great this season. He's pretty much matured a lot since that debut that he made. It was, like, from memory, it was very shaky. He was just not very comfortable with the ball at his feet, and compare that to the season that he's just had. I mean, it's like a phenomenal improvement. That being said, he was always a very good goalkeeper, which is why he came to United, but that's besides the point. The point I'm trying to make is that he's been absolutely solid at the back for us this season. He's made some great saves. And I think with the strengthening of the defense, with Victor Lindelof coming in, I really don't see why he shouldn't be our number one should De Gea try to decide to leave.
More importantly, I think Mourinho trusts him as well, especially starting him in all the important Europa League games.
Yes, I'm very much inclined.
Absolutely right. He started the final for us, and that pretty much says it all.
I can't disagree with any of that. I mean, at the end of the day, you can rattle off a list of goals. And myself being a goalkeeper, this is one thing I'm always looking at. We know there's a bunch of young keepers that are coming through that everybody wants to get their hands on, but I'm very much in agreement with, I think, most of you, and sticking with Romero. I feel like players should be rewarded for performances and loyalty, and he has, he knows very well where he sits in terms of being in the pecking order behind De Gea, but he played extremely well throughout the Europa League, making a lot of key saves, even in the cup games. So did he play any domestic? I think he played a few domestic cup games, not that we got too far, but I think his performances in the Europa League, and he was rightly rewarded with a spot in the final by Mourinho. So I think going forward, obviously we've got, is Sam Johnston still there, or have we gotten rid of him?
I think
we got rid of him.
Obviously we've got,
He's been moved on this season.
yeah, we've got obviously Joel Pereira, who got a start in the last match of the season, and I think I wouldn't be unhappy with him being back up to Romero at this point if we were to have Romero be our number one.
Yep.
So
Agree with that.
that just about wraps us up for this evening. It's been an hour 45 here. I didn't put a lot on, but we were able to sort of we were able to go for a little bit longer than I thought we would. I'd like to thank you all for joining me this evening. Ashish, thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries at all. Happy to do this again.
Good. Ashneel, thank you as well.
All good, mate. Happy to join in again.
And Vishnu as well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers for hosting, man.
That's not a problem. And for the listeners as well, if you have any points to bring up yourself or any questions that you'd like to have us bring up on the next United podcast with Five at the Back, leave them in where we put this on the Facebook page and QT Football and our own Facebook page. Leave a comment. We're quite happy to read out questions in the next one and get the viewers involved. That's ultimately what we're doing this for. Thank you very much to the three lads who helped me this evening, and we'll see you next time.